our destination. We hope you enjoy the
Hello
flight.
and welcome to I'm not your tour guide, but I am your host, Starla Skelton. Today on the show, I am pumped to introduce someone that I originally met through a couple of my best friends' CrossFit family. And I met this guest in the gym, and I realized right away that she was a beast. So, of course, I wanted to be her friend. And then, fast forward a little bit, I found out that her and her husband were saving up to purchase an RV and travel around the United States for a year. And I was like, this is awesome. Someone who is doing something that I have always dreamt of doing. So I was so ecstatic for them. And so I followed her and her hubby on social media for a year, and I was definitely obsessed with their way of life. So here today with me to talk to us about that trip and to give us some pointers and just, give us all the good information is Callie. Hey, girl.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me on. It's such an honor. I'm like, wow, to be interviewed on a podcast. I feel like a badass.
Well, first of all, you are.
Well, thank you.
And you really did do something that, it's almost kind of like the American dream. I mean, I know there are a lot of American dreams out there, but part of it is like, hey, sell everything I've got that I've worked so hard for, get an RV and just travel the country. I mean, that's a dream of people's, right?
Yeah. I feel like people used to say like living in a van down by the river, like it was an insult, I think now it's like, it's a compliment that anybody would do that or could do that or want to, because it's just like such a freeing way of kind of living your life without a bunch of stuff to hold you down.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You in general in life, I just want to give a little background about you. You
Sure.
are a relatively new mother. And,
Yes,
of course, I stalk you on social media and, you're crushing motherhood. So are you loving it? Are you loving everything about it?
I definitely am. I am shocked sometimes at how much I do enjoy it. Because I waited quite some time to have a baby. I turned 34 just like a few months after I had her. And, for the longest time I was kind of like, I'm probably not going to have any kids, I think it's fine. Like I'm enjoying life. I think, Caleb and I have a good thing going here. Let's just not complicate it. And then it happened. And now I'm like, if I would have gotten pregnant when I was much younger, I'd probably have like 5 kids by now. Because I love it so much. I mean, I have a daughter. Her name is Scotty, and she is an angel, and best thing that's ever happened to me. So
I love it. She is absolutely beautiful. Love her name. Where'd you get the name from?
She's named after my dad. His name is Scott, and
Awesome.
So her middle name is Claire, and that was my mom's middle name. So both of my parents are, unfortunately, they've passed away. I wanted to, at least give a little nod to them, and I'm sure they're proud to have their granddaughter named after them. So
Scotty Claire, what a
Scotty
boss
Claire.
name. Oh man, I love it.
I hope it translates into adulthood. You know how like some kid names are like very kid-like? So, and then when there's an adult with that child's name, it sounds kind of weird. So I just hope that Scotty transitions into adulthood, and like when it's seen on a resume, people aren't like, oh, that's a baby name,
Oh, no, that's an amazing name. That just
Thank you.
I feel like that's somebody in charge.
I hope so. I mean,
Scotty
she's definitely
Claire
in charge of the house. So
that's awesome. So you are a mother, and then career-wise, what are you doing right now?
So I'm a pediatric dental hygienist.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, and so that's what I've done. I graduated from dental hygiene school in 2014, and so I've been doing that ever since then. Obviously not while we were traveling, but
right.
I came back with the same company, and yeah, so I've been doing
That's amazing. Well, that shows that you're pretty much awesome if you can like take off for a year and then you come back and they're like, yeah, just come on back. Like,
I know.
yeah,
I was a little worried, especially, to tell them I was quitting essentially, but I was able to kind of keep like a PRN status while I was gone. So it was a lot easier to get my job back.
So to transition into the traveling,
yes.
You and your husband took a year off to travel the USA in an RV. So like I mentioned earlier, this is a lot of people's dreams. At what point did you and your husband like look at each other and come to the decision like, hey, we should really do this?
So it's a little morbid, actually. I mean, I hate to say that. So my mom passed away in 2014, and she was sick for quite some time. My dad was, her caregiver, and I just saw them living the years where they should have been enjoying retirement, just kind of older kids and getting to do whatever they want to. Well, they weren't getting to do that. And their dream was to travel when they retired.
Yeah.
And seeing that firsthand, I was like, I don't want to be in that position. I don't want to put off my dreams until I'm like, when I'm retired and when the kids are grown, that's when I'll do that. Well, like, you're not promised that. And it was very obvious to me when all that was going on that, like, both of my parents passed away fairly young. So who knows if I'm going to make it to that age. I mean, I hate to say that. That's why I was like, it's a little morbid.
Or any of it. Yeah.
I mean, so I was like, I don't want to wait. I don't want to not get to live my dreams. I don't want to put off the stuff that I can physically do now that I may not be able to physically do when I'm 60 years old, So I presented this to my husband, who is a very planned person. He is very responsible, financially, professionally. He wants a plan and he needs it all put together, and he's going to work towards a goal. He's a worker bee for sure.
Yeah.
And I never thought that he would go for it. But, I presented it just like that to him. I was like, listen, we could die tomorrow. And if we do, then we didn't do anything cool. So, like, let's do something cool. And I was shocked, honestly, that he agreed to it. I mean, I didn't even have to convince him. He just said, okay. He said, well, how are we going to make this happen?
Yeah.
And so then we started, planning with each other, like, all right, what do we have to do in order to make this happen? Because neither of us have careers that you can work remotely. Like I said, I'm a dental hygienist. I can't really take that on the road. And he is a liquor salesman, was a liquor salesman at the time, and you can't do that remotely either. You have to go in your accounts. You have to build those relationships. You have to have it, face to face. So, and both of us had good jobs, especially him. Great job, really good position, great company. And we were like, we're still going to do it.
Man. So at the point where, and he's like, yeah, let's do it. You were on the same page. Since he's a planner, how far out, like how long in advance did y'all start planning?
So we pretty much started planning like a year and a half before we left.
Okay.
We were living in McDonough, Georgia at the time, and knew that we probably weren't going to want to live right there for, it wasn't our forever home, obviously. Right. We had already been talking about kind of moving. We wanted to maybe buy some land and build a house, but we were just very up in the air about where we wanted to be. So that conversation had already happened before I presented the travel idea. So we were like, okay, well, let's sell our house then. Yeah. And luckily my dad was like, when we told him that this was our plan, he was like, you guys could definitely come and live with me. Wow. And so, so we were able to sell our house, and then we moved in with my dad for a year. And so we were able to save all of our money for a year. We cut all of our unnecessary expenses. Like I stopped getting my hair done. I stopped getting my eyebrows done, all the good stuff. The eyebrow, it was sad. I like to get my eyebrows done. I know that's weird.
It's not weird. Yeah. I mean, those are the things that we do and we get used to. And, I know they're luxuries, but, you get to a point where you kind of expect them if they're routine in your life. So to cut it out, you're giving up something for more of an ultimate goal or dream. So that's a big deal. Yeah. Like, I don't know if I could give up pedicures.
They were on the back burner.
Man.
Yeah, that's what we did. With the money that we made off of our house, we were able to pay off our truck. No, either way, we were able to kind of buy a vehicle to pull the camper with and buy a camper. So that was also our thing, is that we knew that we needed to be in a situation where we didn't have debt, because we weren't going to be able to make payments on things while we were gone. So we had to figure out a way to purchase everything outright and then just have like our normal bills, like our cell phone and insurance. And that would be the only thing that we would be responsible for other than our day-to-day life while we were gone.
While you were living with your father, was he an advocate for you to take this trip?
So yes and no. I was very nervous to tell him because my dad also very hard worker, and he's of that generation where like you work and you put your time in and you're a responsible citizen and then you get to play, but you got to put your time in first. And so I was nervous to tell him. And then when we did, he really didn't say much. He kind of just looked at us and then he said, well, just don't ask me for money. So we were like, okay, we won't. But then we lived with him for a year. So, I mean, essentially it was like him helping in that financial way.
Right.
But he never had to actually give us any money. So we held up our end of the bargain on that one.
Oh God, that's hysterical. I can see that from his generation, just, he, just grew up in a different time period.
Right.
So I understand people of that era not always seeing us as wide-eyed dreamers of like, let's go live our life in our late 20s, early 30s.
Yeah. But it turned out to be, I mean, he was very proud of us.
That's awesome.
I think that once he got used to the idea, it was just so abnormal to him for anybody to do that. But once he got used to the idea, he was like, you know what, this is actually really cool that y'all are doing this. And he visited us several times while we were gone. So he even got to go places, that he wouldn't have gone if we hadn't have done that. So we've got some good memories with him too. So
that's killer. So you two, you and Caleb, your husband, broke the mold, broke the barrier in your family, and we're like, hey, this is what we're doing. We're starting and we're going. So tell me this, where did you guys start? And like, after you tell me that, I kind of want to know, like, how did you plan your route? Was it something you planned out before you left? Like, how did the trip flow?
So we left in October of 2018. So we were leaving at a time where like it was getting cold in Georgia. And I also want to say, before we did this trip, before we bought our camper, we had never pulled a camper before. We had never camped in a camper, like just the two of us. Like it was all new. I was not a camper, not a hiker, I enjoyed being outdoors, but I didn't grow up like in a family that did stuff like that. So that was also a learning curve. So we were like, well, we don't want to be frozen. So we need to probably figure out a route that was going to take us to some warmer places first, and then we'll make our rounds, So we went down to Florida first.
Perfect.
So that's kind of what our thought process was. Like, we're going to try to chase some warmer weather, and then main destinations that we were trying to hit were national parks. So that was our big thing, is that we wanted to visit as many national parks as possible. And so that's like another way that we kind of planned our route. I said before that Caleb is a planner. I am not. I am 100% like whatever happens kind of person. I like a plan, but I'm not going to do it. So if somebody lays out a plan for me, I'm like, cool, I'm all in, but I'm not going to plan it. And Caleb kind of left it up to me. So when I say that we had a plan, it was very loose, and it was very much like, I know that this is where these national parks are, and it's probably going to be warm, so let's just go that way. Okay.
And so whenever you would get on the road, would you just drive until you're tired? Would you say like, no, if we're in, I don't know, Birmingham, Alabama, we're going to make it to Memphis, Tennessee, and we're not going to stop? Like, did you have like small goals, or you just were like, whatever?
Well, so I would have our next, like, at least 2 or 3 places booked and ready to go before we'd leave. So I did plan, just not like I didn't do it like months in advance. Like something like I didn't map it out on the map and say, this is where we're going to go. But I'm really glad that I did have those, because I didn't realize how popular camping was, especially in Florida in the winter. So like the snowbirds are everywhere. And you have to, I mean, you really do have to book super in advance. We didn't get to camp at a lot of places that, like state parks and stuff, that we thought we would be able to, because they were all booked up like months in advance from the snowbirds, which I assume everybody knows what a snowbird is, but if not, it's an older person from the north that comes to the south for the winter. So
there's a lot of them. So many.
Yes. Yeah.
So is that a tip you would give to somebody that's planning this ahead of time? Just like, hey, check out, if you have a place you really want to stay in advance, you can go ahead and make a reservation. What was the normal time period that you had to make a reservation? Like, could you make a reservation 6 months out? Is that possible?
Yeah. Some places will let you do that. You just call them and like some places you have to do that. I know people who have camped somewhere and then before they leave, they go ahead and make a reservation for the next year at the same time. And that's really popular in Florida because there's beach camping. So people will go to the same place every single year and they just book their same spot right on the beach with their camper and just every year, so they get in early. So I would definitely recommend, if you know that you want to camp somewhere, go ahead and make that reservation and, finagle your schedule around that if that's, what you're doing.
Yeah. So you started with warmer weather in Florida, and then then obviously you can't really head south from Florida. So you head north. Where is the first national park that you hit?
So the first national park was Big Bend National Park in Texas. And I'd love to add, so you think like you're traveling like the southern border of the United States, you're hitting Texas, New Mexico, Arizona. In your mind, you're like, warm. It's going to be warm there because it's the desert. And I mean, okay, maybe I'm dumb and just assumed that. Because I did. I was like, fine, it's going to be great. Right. It's the desert. No. The elevation, that's a real thing. And we got out to, I guess probably Texas, I think. We're like, it's actually cold, it's cold here. So that was funny to us because we did not take the altitude, the elevation change into consideration at all.
So how did you guys stay warm? Were you prepared for that with layers and clothing, or did you build some fires outside, or
So mainly, we weren't worried about ourselves being warm. We were worried about things freezing in our camper.
Got you.
Because like even here in Georgia, when it gets really cold, people drip the faucets, they leave the cabinet doors open. Well, I mean, you think about being in this camper with like hardly any insulation, and we're newbies to this. We don't really know, but Google is your friend. And we bought like heated hose pipes. We ended up having to like purchase a lot of stuff like while we were gone because we just didn't know.
Right.
So they have, heated water attachments, like, so it's wrapped and it keeps your water from freezing.
Right.
We would use like an electric space heater in our camper and just crank it up. I mean, we'd be sweltering, but like we were concerned about our stuff freezing because if you have a major issue with your RV while you're gone. First of all, if you're out in the middle of Texas, for instance, Big Bend National Park is a very remote place and there's not a lot of help around, I guess. And, plus you're not familiar with the area. So we just didn't want to be in a situation where we needed a lot of help and we didn't want to have to spend a lot of money on repairs. We bought a used camper that we were able to pay for outright. And we were like, we need this to get us where we got to go.
Right. How old was the camper?
I think it was like a 2012. It was a Coachman Freedom Express and I named her Fifi.
I was about to ask, what'd you name her?
Yep, Fifi. And before we left, my husband and his dad actually had to replace the floor because it turned out that it had a leak at some point and the floor was sagging. And I think that is actually a really common thing with used campers. We obviously didn't know what to check for when we bought it. There's a lot of stuff, like looking back now, I'm like, oh, we really didn't, plan the best, or we just didn't have the knowledge that we needed to start out. I should have researched more. I should have tried to talk to more people about it. But like I said, that's not me. I was just like, let's just go. Let's just find a camper. It's fine.
So you should ask the salesperson that's selling it to you about things like the floors? What else would you ask them now that you know?
Yeah, so like, especially if it's like a used camper, like it was obviously traded in, you could ask them if why they traded it in, how long did they have it, and then I would really just walk around the outside and look at everything, any dents, anything that looks like it's been repaired or like recalked, or I mean, I know you have to recalk the stuff, but just like big areas. Like there are some things that were actually kind of noticeable on our camper that we should have asked questions about. We just didn't know to. And that little area on the floor, I think was there when we bought it. And the salesman was like, oh no, it's fine. Like that's just like a spongy floor area. And I don't know why we trusted that. That's not, especially with Caleb. I mean, I don't know. We were like, I think it was just like, it's go time. Like we're getting this camper. And it took us a while to find one that we liked that was small and within a certain weight limit and all of that, because we didn't want to tow this huge camper when we had no experience. So we got like a 24-foot camper, and I wanted a real bed. I didn't want the trundle bed. Because I was like, if we were just weekend warrioring it, like it'd be okay to sleep on something like that. But like, this is actually our home. We need a comfortable mattress. We need a kitchen. Like I needed a bigger refrigerator because we are going to be cooking most of our meals. I needed somewhere to store our groceries. I wanted an oven and a stovetop. So there were things that I needed to check off, and this camper really checked all my boxes. Right. Except that it had water damage. But they fixed it and it made it.
Okay, good. So you're headed to Texas. You didn't realize it was going to be as cold as it was. So you had a couple not issues, but you figured stuff out.
Right.
Bought some stuff that you needed to buy to make everything work. At what point, I'm curious, on your trail, on your road trail, I don't know. Is there a nickname
trail,
for it?
The Oregon Trail. I don't know. Yeah, the old dusty trail.
The old dusty trail. Yeah. I don't know the term for it, but at what point, at what park, this is what I'm curious, at what national park did you go to that it hit you that you were like, oh man, like I didn't know things like this existed in America. Like this is so beautiful. This is what I had imagined it all to be.
So hard to even answer that question because every place, it just was so different than what you see here. And I forgot to mention this earlier about, the reasoning behind wanting to travel. So in 2017, we went to Alaska. That is the farthest I'd ever been from home. I'd never seen anything like that. I felt like I was in another country, basically. Yeah. It was gorgeous. The mountains, just the landscape, everything. And when I traveled to Alaska, I was like, I have to see more. I need, I've got to see what the rest of this country looks like. Like we live here. And this is in the country that I live in, and I've never seen anything like it. So I need to see more. So traveling, I was just like, wow, I'd never seen the desert like that. I'd never seen the cactus. I think it was just so awesome. But really, people always ask, like, what was your favorite place? Like, what is the place that was just like the most beautiful? So that national park for me would be Mount Rainier. It was just gorgeous. Everything just looked like a painting. It was incredible. My favorite hike was there, everything about it. I love Washington State, as hey, that's where you are. So
well, hello from Washington State.
It's beautiful. I loved kind of like the dreary weather, which we honestly didn't even have that much of while we were there. People just are.
No, see, let me tell you a little secret, Callie. Let me tell you what I've learned in the very short time I've been here. This place is amazing. The weather's not even that freaking bad, but they tell people it rains all the time so that people don't come here, so that people don't want to move here. They're like, oh no, it sucks 9 months of the year. I don't believe them. And
yeah. That's not true. I mean, we weren't there that long,
right. But Georgia has rain. Okay. When I lived in Georgia, the downpours, the thunderstorms, the lightning, the flooding in the streets, Georgia has rain. Yep. There is a light mist here in Seattle. And I'm okay with it, but I love that you love Mount Rainier. What an incredible view. Just the almost permanent snow year round that's on top.
Yep.
Right now, yesterday, from my house at the top of the hill, you can see Rainier.
Wow.
And the whole mountain is covered in snow right now. And it's just, it had like clouds forming around it at the top and then clouds at the bottom forming.
Just ominous and like gorgeous. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
yeah.
amazing. I loved it there.
So in all this time that you spent together, was it like a full year? Was that?
So it was we were gone 14 months actually. Yeah.
Okay.
So, but the only reason that we ended up extending, our plan was to just be gone a year, but we left in 2019, the end of 2019. So, 2020 was the year of COVID and we were on the road for that. So, just like life kind of stopped for everybody at home, life stopped other places too. We had to postpone traveling for, it was almost 3 months exactly, I think. We stopped traveling in March and then we picked back up in June. So we stayed in one place for 3 months. And so that's why we ended up extending at the end. So we could kind of hit some of those places that we wanted to try to get in before we had to come home.
I feel like when you're talking about travel, it's almost the same thing when you're talking about a baby. It's like they're not a year old. It's like they're 14 months, right? Like you want want them to know exactly how long you were traveling.
It was
exactly
14 months, okay? Like, don't you short me those 2 months.
Exactly. Okay, 14 months you were on the road, and was there a point where you were just like, what is going on here? I'm doing it wrong. This is not fun anymore. Like, I just want to go home. Like, did you and Caleb have any breakdown moments?
No.
So cool.
I know. The only time that I can say that we even maybe thought about going home was right when COVID happened, like in March of 2020, right before things started shutting down. Caleb's uncle worked for the airport security people. What is that called?
TSA?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
My brain. Okay, so I still have a mom brain, or like my pregnancy brain just transitioned into a mom brain, and so like I'm dumber than I've ever been. So you'll just have to excuse me. I really appreciate you picking up for me there.
You're good.
So TSA, we were talking to him, and he was like, "Look, guys, like." The country is about to completely shut down. And he was like, I'm not trying to scare you, but like, this is the talk. So are y'all gonna, at this time we were in Colorado and we were actually in Rocky Mountain National Park. And so we were in like an area where there's places, that's a really incredible part of Colorado. And we had friends that lived out in Loveland. And so we were kind of like, this is not a bad place to stay, but should we go home? Mm-hmm. And so we did have a conversation about that. But ultimately we decided, like, if we go home, we don't have jobs. What are we going to do? There's no difference about being there or just like staying the course, like just trying to ride it out and see what happens. Like maybe things won't shut down. Nobody knew what was going to happen. So we just decided, nope, we're just going to keep going and we'll play it by ear.
So because you guys were on a budget for a year and you ended up staying 14 months, did you have to cut back on certain things while you were gone? Money-wise, monetarily?
We didn't. I think we really over planned.
That's amazing.
We oversaved, and I know.
Wait, hold on. I don't know if I've ever heard anybody say that. We oversaved.
Oversaved.
That's great.
Well,
that's
also,
a goal of mine one day.
I know. I don't. We will never again oversave. I think that was just like the only time.
You and Debbie Chan are the only two people I know that oversave.
Well, Debbie has like. She's like a quadruple income person, like she's
a hustler.
She is
that girl
hustler.
hustling. She works nonstop. Oh yeah, I love it.
That's not me though, so I've got to make it count. I keep going back to the fact that I'm not a planner. However, I did say when we started talking about saving money and stuff, I followed some Instagram people who full-time travel, and they are awesome, and they post their monthly budget. And a lot of these people had like truck payments, they had RV payments, they would put their grocery bills per month. And so they would have their budget on there. And I was like, okay, well, this is a family with 2 kids. They've got a truck payment. They've got an RV payment. If they're only budgeting like $4,000 a month and they're fine, then we'll be fine too. So I just kind of followed that. And
what's an average rental space per night for an RV in a camp?
On average, it was like around $35, I would say.
Really?
Yeah, like it was much more affordable than I thought it would be.
Mm-hmm.
But then like I think the most that we ever had to pay, and I like balked at this price, and now I'm like, wow, that was really cheap. I think it was like $65. But you know, I'm like, in my head, I'm like, we have no money coming. I live in an RV.
I live in a van down by the river. Let's just say somebody does this and really had to budget. Are there certain places where you could just not hook up your RV, and then just, go outside to poop, pee, get water down by the river, just like camping, but it's more like a glamping? Did you meet anybody that lived that kind of lifestyle on the road?
And so that's called boondocking. In the RV community, it's called boondocking. And that's like where you're just camping. Like, I mean, you're in your camper and you have no hookup. And people boondock like crazy. We boondocked while we were gone. And that's some of the best camping because you're in remote places. You know, you don't have a neighbor in an RV park or like a state park. You're just kind of out there just doing your own thing. But you do have to prepare for that, obviously. So it's super easy in a camper because especially if you're not going to do it for like a week or more at a time, you just fill up your water tank, we had a generator also. So like you just make sure you have gas for your generator so you can run the power if you need to. A lot of these people who live full time and boondock a lot have solar, and they run everything off of their solar panels, which obviously that's expensive to get started, but I think in the long run, it's really a good thing if you're going to be doing this for a long period of time because you can just rely on your solar and you're pretty much completely independent. You don't need that campground. You just have to find somewhere to dump your tanks, refill your water, and then you can be wherever you want.
Boondocking. I didn't know that was a term. That's pretty rad.
So there's apps that you can, search. You filter what type of camping you want to do. You pick your area where you want to be and you hit search, and like it'll tell you this has partial hookup. So partial hookup would just be like maybe just electricity or water, no sewer, or it has no hookups, full hookups, all of that. I mean, it's so user friendly. It was much easier to find places than I would have ever imagined. So
I wonder what people did pre-internet with their RVing across the country. You think they just bought road maps at each town,
like
a gas station?
They were just going for it, I guess. I mean, maybe just pulling over at rest stops honestly, I have no idea because the internet was so crucial for us while we were gone. I mean, not only to find our campsites, but also to navigate us around. We had to use GPS constantly. Like we didn't know where we were anytime. Yeah. So we always had to have our GPS. And so we also had like a wireless little internet connection thing from Verizon that we took with us, like a hotspot. Okay. But, that doesn't work if you don't have cell service. So we had to be really diligent about making sure that our GPS, like our map downloaded. So if we lost service along the way, that we weren't just going to be like, well, we don't know where we are or how to get there. I mean, we could have used a paper map, I guess, but.
So on this trip, you started in Florida, made your way around. Did you ever come back to the East Coast?
We did not make it to the East Coast. We figured that we would not be able to we wanted to hit as many states as possible while we were gone. We ended up hitting 32.
Wow.
But nothing on the East Coast. We got all of the West Coast, most of like the Midwest area, and we kind of stopped in, I think the furthest like east we got was maybe Wisconsin or Illinois. I don't know which one's further east, but yeah. So, and then we started coming back down. So we had to go through some states that we'd already been to get back home. But we hope to one day maybe do an East Coast trip, maybe not for a year, obviously, but if we could ever finagle it somehow to at least take a couple weeks and do it, that would be lovely. So
we're
really looking forward to doing the East Coast. I'd love to go to Maine, love to go to, Massachusetts, all of that, but maybe one day.
Yeah, definitely. You made 14 months happen. You can take a couple weeks. You can make it happen. I have faith in you for sure.
I appreciate that.
So one of the questions I was going to ask you for, people like myself, for my plans to do something similar to this one day. Do you have any tips or advice that really just stand out to you that you would say, hey, look, before you do this trip, just think about this or do this or know that or go here? Like, do you have any advice for anybody wanting to do this?
My advice for anybody wanting to do this is like, do it. Don't be like, oh, I think like if you can make it happen, like make it happen, because it is so worth it. And it's not permanent. It may turn into something permanent for you, because I think that happens for a lot of people. You know, they were like, oh, I'm just going to take a year. And then they love it so much that they find ways to work while they're gone. They change careers. They do work camping. Like there's all kinds of different things. But yeah, do it for sure. You know, save your money, you know, have your nest egg, have your emergency funds, because you just want to be prepared financially. I feel like that's very important, especially starting out, just to help you feel more confident, just knowing that you have that. And I mean, I would say like plan your route, or don't, because people get so scheduled that they're like, well, I have to be here at this time and blah, blah, blah. Like a plan is good, but you don't have to live and die by the plan. You need to be able to be flexible, because that is a lot of what the traveling was being flexible, because a lot of time your plan it won't work out anyway.
Right.
And if you're just so set on that, then I feel like you'll be disappointed. But just, if you can just like relax a little bit, because that's part of it, you know, just having fun, kind of flying by the seat of your pants type thing. And that's not for everybody, but I also feel like people who are super scheduled and super planned are probably not going to want to do this, you know, for a long period of time anyway. But yeah, I mean, just do it.
How do you feel about the concept of a home now that you have your daughter and you and your husband, Caleb, and your daughter? Does having a home and having something more consistent and permanent, like, does that mean more to you?
I don't know if it necessarily means more, but I would not be traveling right now with her. Absolutely not. That we met a lot of people who traveled full-time with their kids. I mean, some of them had babies. We literally were hiking the Narrows in Zion National Park, and we met this couple. They had their children strapped to their bodies. And I mean, we're in river water up to our waists.
Yeah.
And one of the baby, I mean, it was a baby, a year old, and it was in one of those carriers, like above their head. And then the other, it was like a toddler, like 2 or 3. And they're just carrying both these kids, hiking the Narrows in water. It's not a super easy, it's not a hard hike. It's not easy. You're not sturdy, you know, like you're walking on river rocks and you're in water, and it, you know, sometimes was a little rapidy, and you have a stick, and how are you carrying your kids? Like, I wouldn't want to take my dog. So,
wow, those were special human beings.
That's just the mentality, you know. They were like, well, why not? That's another, like, we met so many cool people while we were gone, and just seeing how they navigated that because a lot of the people that we met had kids, and they were not school aged most of the time. So I think when they're older, they, you know, would be more established. And so, but I can't imagine traveling with Scotty right now. Like, I would not be taking her to the Narrows. Like, that would, selfishly, I wouldn't have as much fun with her. I assume. I mean, I've never done it, but that's just how I feel. I would be very worried about her well-being. And so I'd be like, well, she's got a nap in 30 minutes. So, I mean, like, we got to run this last. Yeah.
Oh, that's
time
right.
for her bottle, and then her snack. So
we're setting up camp right here.
Yeah, like
oh my God. You know, I think my personal perspective with what you just said about it, traveling with a kid, I was trying to think whenever I was preparing for this podcast about my personal experiences of traveling with my own daughter. Because, you know, you have a daughter, and I was just, you know, thinking in my head, like, whenever I think back and when I traveled in the past with Coral, my daughter, I tend to pay more attention to, like, her reactions, like the curiosity and excitement in her eyes.
Yeah.
And then also, like, I'm focused on, like, well, what does she want to eat? Well, what, you know, would she be more comfortable here or here? So, I mean, it's just something as a mother, of course, I want her to be independent and grow on her own. But I mean, when she's 6, it's like, I'm worried. I'm focused on her, and I'm more focused on her experiences than what I'm experiencing. And so I'm wondering.
I feel like you just like summed up parenthood right there. Like, I mean, Scotty's only 1, but even now, I mean, I do stuff to see her reaction, as lame as it sounds, like everything I do is for her, like, I hate saying that because that's not it's just hard adjusting to a new mom personality. Like, what is my personality now that I'm a mom versus I was not a mom for so long. But it's true. I mean, you do it all for them. And so I can totally see that. And so now that you've said that, I can't even imagine, because I didn't even have her then. She wasn't even like a glimmer in my eye at that point in time, So it would be amazing to see her reaction to, seeing new places and experiencing new things. And maybe I need to be a little more open-minded to that, because you're right. I would love to see that.
But it's funny though. I think, you know what? I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it anyways. I remember one time my brother, before he had kids, he has 2 wonderful daughters now. He is a freaking amazing father. So this isn't dogging him at all. But he said to me, years and years and years ago, he said, when I realized that I wasn't sure if I wanted to ever have kids. And I was like, when? He was like, well, it's your fault. And I was like, okay, why was it my fault? He was like, because we were traveling in Ecuador. We had just climbed Cotopaxi, gone to Cotopaxi National Park, and we had done all these things and we went to the Amazon River and just had like the time of our life together for like 2.5, 3 weeks. And then he was setting off and going to the Galapagos to go scuba diving. And I was like, oh, like I had planned, 2.5 weeks with him, but I was a mom and I was like, no, I gotta get home. I was like, because I would much rather, no offense, but I would much rather be home with my daughter at this point. Like, I'm very excited to see her, and I have no desire to go to the Galapagos because I would much rather go home and see her. And he was just like, what? Like, I don't ever want to think like that.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't ever want to have that mentality. I don't want to think that way. Yeah. He was like, you really deterred me for a minute there. And I'm like, yeah. I was like, it's just, again, if you don't want to have kids, I'm not telling people they should have kids. That's not what I'm saying here. I don't, I think you can be just as happy either way. I'm just saying, for me, once I did have a kid, your perspective does change. It does. Again, not saying it's better than anybody else's, but for me, it was just like, oh, so now I get to see the world like through her eyes. And again, I do believe in taking time for yourself. I've always done kind of me trips every couple years just to remember who I am as a person by myself as well, because I do think that made me a better mother.
Right.
But it's still, to me now, it's so much more fun traveling with her and just watching her see things. It's like, this is so much cooler.
Yeah. Like, what do you think, Spawn? Like, yeah. So maybe when Scotty's older, definitely not like I say definitely, who knows? But ideally, I would imagine that I would not want to do like a long-term road trip with her like that.
Right.
But I would love to travel with her,
Right.
I think that would be great. I didn't do a lot of, I didn't do any traveling basically as a kid. We went to Florida, Tennessee, the surrounding states. We didn't travel. And I think it would be great to do that with her. So hopefully we will.
That's awesome. I can't wait to see yours and Scotty's and your man's travel pictures.
I know.
I will stalk you on the social media.
You may.
So your trip, to sum it up, you loved it. It was amazing. You would recommend it to anybody and everybody who could do something like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And even, I know I've, referenced COVID several times, but like even through all of that, it's still the coolest thing ever to do. You just go with the flow. And like I said, if you're just open and you're just flexible to your situation, it's going to be fine. Like, it's going to work itself out. Like, we had to be stationary for 3 months, but we ended up staying in a cool town in Utah. We both found jobs for 3 months. So we didn't even have to use our travel money, because that was one of my main concerns. I was like, well, if we're just going to be sitting here, like, we're just using our money and we're just sitting here in this town, everything's closed. So we both were able to find some temporary secondary employment, and I got to ride my bike to work in this cute little town in Utah. Like, it was so weird. I dyed my
That
hair
sounds
pink.
amazing.
Yeah. If you have the mentality to make it work, it'll work out.
What a cool experience, though.
Yeah.
I love it. You just made the best of the situation, the best of what you could at that time. That's
For
really
sure.
cool.
And we were in St. George, Utah, which is right outside of Zion National Park. And it's also just a really, really pretty part of Utah, the Red Rocks. There was a state park like in that town called Snow Canyon State Park. Gorgeous. If anybody has ever seen the High School Musical movies, like the one where they're, I know this is so weird. The one, I don't know, maybe it's like the second one. I've actually never sat down and watched it, but they're at this resort for the summer, like working at the pool and the golf course and stuff. It's there in that town. Yeah.
Well,
so, I mean,
there's a generation of people who know what you're talking about, but I'm not one of them. I don't know.
Look, we play it at the dentist office, and I was like, oh, that looks familiar. And so I think I ended up Googling it, and it was funny.
Okay, so I have a question. Do you mind, because I love doing this sometimes.
Okay.
I got 3 rapid fire questions for you.
Oh gosh.
That you
told you my mom brain. Okay, I'm going to concentrate.
It's okay. It's okay, because if you take too long, I'll just edit it out.
Okay. Solid.
Okay, here we go. Rapid fire question number 1. Pooping is not a quiet affair. We all know this. So in your RV, did you and Caleb have like a routine for going number 2? Or did it just get comfortable to where you're like, hey, I'm going, I don't care that you hear, and you're right there next to it? And like, how did that work for y'all?
Okay, well, this is, people who RV are going to think this is so crazy. For the first, probably, I would say like at least maybe like 6 months or more of our trip, we did not poop in the RV toilet. We would go to the bathhouse of the campground, or we would go in another, because Caleb didn't want to empty poop out, like the sewer. Like, he didn't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, like, we literally had our own personal bathroom and shower, and we would go to the bathhouse. Eventually, I was like, this is dumb. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm using our bathroom. Like, I'm pooping, I'm peeing, I'm showering in my house, because this is my house.
Right.
To my knowledge, I don't think Caleb ever pooped in the RV toilet. I don't think he did ever. I definitely.
Wow.
So it was my bathroom.
You had your own personal private bathroom.
I did. So
that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. So he had to deal with my poop. You know? Okay.
That's good to know. I was very curious, because I have a boyfriend who does not care if I hear anything. So I can only imagine. I think I would be the one that would be mortified. Like, I would be like, turn on some music, or, go take a walk or something like that. You'd
get over it. I think you'd get over it really quickly. Also, we had been married since 2013. Like, we left in 2018. We got married in 2013. We've been together since 2009. I mean, at this point, there's really not anything that we haven't like experienced together. So like, pooping was not very high on my list of worries.
But he didn't go to the bathroom, so he cleaned your poop.
He did. He sure did. That's my man. He's got
He's got you. He's got your back. Wow. Oh, well, he's a good man.
He is. He's a good man.
A very good man. Okay, number 2. We got 3 of these. Number 2.
Okay.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how good of a driver are you with your RV hooked to the back of your truck?
Me personally?
Mm-hmm.
Oh God. I drove with the RV attached 2 times.
Really?
2. Oh yeah. I did not do it. No. Okay, so our kind of setup was that Caleb always drove when we were we call them travel days, like, when we were going from destination to destination, pulling the camper. He drove then, and then when we got to where we were going, I usually drove around, so he got to like look and just be a passenger princess, like I got to be most of the time. So I mean, I'm gonna put my skills at 2, I guess. I mean, it was I was safe. But there was nothing. There was no strategery. Like
That's hysterical. So you're the first mate, but the first mate of an RV. I don't know what you would call that.
I don't either. we gotta figure out a term, because that was my position. I mean, I took it very seriously.
Yeah.
I only napped maybe like a handful of times, and usually it was if I was hungover.
Right.
So I would need a little snooze.
Last question. If you could do it all over again, like you know, hindsight, what's one thing that you wouldn't have left home without?
This is dumb or bougie, maybe. You know, we just had like a regular coffee pot, and so I asked for an espresso for Christmas, and I swapped out my coffee pot because I wanted, you know, I didn't want just drip coffee every day. Like, I wanted a better coffee because I found myself like wanting to go buy coffee. And I was like, I can rectify this situation. I can just make better coffee in our camper. And
so fancy coffee. I love that.
Fancy coffee. Yeah, like something like that. But I took too much stuff. Like we were packed out. I didn't need all of the crap. I mean, we were over prepared. So our truck had a camper cover over the bed. So we had that packed full of stuff. I mean, like we had our bikes, we had the generator, we had a extra like water storage thing. We had fishing poles. So we had
over prepared and you oversaved.
Yes. Right? Like I'm the most uninteresting. Like, I was so prepared. Everything just went wonderfully.
It was fun. I've actually never gotten along with my husband more in my life.
I know.
No, we didn't have any bad time. Everything was wonderful.
Oh, man. I did run over a boulder, and I ripped the step off of the one side of the truck, but the camper wasn't attached. Like we were in Austin, Texas, and we were leaving our camp site to go explore or whatever, and they had these 2 huge boulders like markating the entrance to the campsite, and so you had to go forward a little bit before you started turning, and I just turned and I just ran up on this boulder. And I mean, when I say boulder, it was huge, and so I did that.
That's a nice boulder. You see that boulder? That's a nice boulder.
I want to see what's up with this boulder. But then when Caleb ripped our stairs off of the back of the camper when he was pulling out of a campsite. It caught on a tree. Yeah, we were in California at this point, but yeah, it caught on a tree, ripped it off. And then, I was like, I'm not the only one who tore up our stuff.
So you had a couple mishaps, but like overall, it was awesome.
Yeah, I know.
That's exciting. I love that for you. I love that you had that experience. I do. I just made a joke about you, but at the same time, I joke out of jealousy because, man, it sounds amazing. I know it was a trip of a lifetime. It's something you can always look back on, probably even in the tough times of your life. You can be like, man, it's something you can reminisce on, and you can smile about it because it did happen. And thank you for taking the time to share all of this with me, because I just kind of lived vicariously through you. And I definitely will be reaching out to you one day to get some advice when I go and buy my own camper. It's going to happen.
There you go. I will say, it's funny. We've been back 3 years now. So we came home 3 years ago, and we have not camped one time since we not once. Our camper has literally been sitting under an awning for 3 years. So
are you going to sell it?
We need to. I want to camp. I really do have the desire, but our life has been wild since we came back. I mean, it's just been nonstop. It doesn't seem like it's slowing down anytime soon.
Yeah.
So yeah, camping is not on our, the forefront of stuff that we have going on right now. But I do think that we need to sell it, and then when the time comes, we'll just get something else. So if
you should pass along the love on this one, sell it, give it to a good home, let it do some more traveling before it gets too old.
It needs
and
to.
then you should. Well, thank you so much. This was awesome. I love talking to you.
Thank
It
you
was
so much
super
for
awesome.
having me. I enjoyed it.
Of course. Tell your husband and your baby girl that I said hello.
I will tell him.
All right. Bye, girl. Thanks.
Bye. Thank you.